Hey, this is Chris, the Idaho Painter. Thanks for watching this free lesson on how to epoxy a garage floor. If you want to see more of my comprehensive course, it's at paintlifesupply.com. It goes over estimating, it goes over marketing, it goes over all the steps to complete a professional garage epoxy floor. So hopefully you enjoy this lesson. Thank you for watching. All right, Tony, we're out here working on another epoxy floor today, and we just got done filling saw cuts, we got done filling cracks, and we're going to begin starting our epoxy floor tomorrow and throwing some flakes and stuff. But one of the questions I get quite a bit about our system, the system that I use, is I don't grind, and so I've never ground a floor before. In I think 25 years applying floor coatings, I've used acid stains. Now I actually prime instead of not acid stains but muriatic acid, and now I actually just prime using a Rust-Oleum product. And you got some insight on that might help my audience understand this process. So I typically only do residential garage floors. I'm not doing industrial floors. I'm not doing floors where heavy equipment is driving on. It's like this is a new construction house. This is just going to be automobile traffic in it. So is it right or wrong to not grind a floor before you actually do your coatings?
It's absolutely a great question, and the answer is yes and no.
Okay.
It really depends on the job or the project. So one of the toughest things that a floor can experience is the dry turning of vehicle tires, forklift traffic, dropping heavy items on there. That's not really a concern in the residential setting.
Right.
We haven't, in this particular application, we have a brand new slab. We haven't had a bunch of abuse, chemical spills, oil spills. So Rust-Oleum has formulated a product with almost a decade of efficacy that is a proven performer in these environments. We've used it from residential to projects that just can't have prep equipment. They can't have noise. They can't have the extra time it takes. So there is a time and a place for everything. Being founded as a primer company, particularly, Rust-Oleum is always innovative. And again, this particular application, close to a decade right now of proven performance.
Right. So one of the products that I've used in the past, Epoxy Shell 550. Mm-hmm. So that was a primer, specifically designed, for like applications like this. And can you talk about just what is Epoxy Shell 550 if you haven't heard about it?
Yeah. So the Epoxy Shell 550 and the EP55, which we're using today, are going to be very, very similar. They're going to be a water-based technology that is an adhesion promoter, meaning we can't do anything to alter the properties of that coating simply because it has extra additives for adhesion. Like the 550, the EP55 will stick to tile, it'll stick to aluminum, it'll stick to burnished concrete. As long as we have clean surfaces, dry surfaces, it's a very formidable primer. In addition to, it's breathable.
So it's breathable.
So in certain situations, certain coatings may need a breathable system to it, and it is breathable as well.
Right. So you're a Rust-Oleum rep. You've worked with Rust-Oleum for a long time. So to the audience out here that might be watching this, if we don't acid etch this floor, if we don't grind this floor, but we clean this floor with the proper cleaner, and then we apply the EPL 55, did I say that right?
The EP55.
The EP55 or Epoxy Shell 550, you're pretty confident that that is going to hold up and not fail in this residential setting.
Very, very confident in it. We have a proven track record of performance. We sell a lot of products that do require grinding, but there are situations where grinding isn't necessary. This is one of those situations, especially considering if we're painting the inside of this house as a interior house painter. We can add this to our portfolio without the investment in equipment.
So what would you say, maybe like a basement, would that be another scenario where priming, because you can't grind, or maybe you can't use an acid and be shop vacuuming wet stuff down in the basement? Is that another place where you could actually use it?
A basement is really a perfect situation. I know we all want to be He-Man and carry that grinding machine down the stairs, but there's a lot of liability with that, not only for the homeowner, but also for the applicator. And so situations where it's not easy to get that prep equipment absolutely makes sense. And no odor as well. So we don't have those harmful chemicals, and we're not kicking silica dust into the air if that extraction equipment isn't functioning 100%.
So the last floor I did, EP55 and Epoxy Shell 550, the primer that you can use in this residential setting. This is a brand new construction house, but what about, a floor? We're actually working on another job right now where the house is quite a few years old. Vehicles have been coming in and out of the garage for a long period of time, and say it's dripped automotive oil or say transmission fluid. Can you just clean that, and can you prime that, and are you gonna have success with this system that we're actually doing?
Great question again, and in most settings, absolutely. Utilizing the Rust-Oleum industrial cleaners, the foaming aerosol, the concentrated mixes will take most of those household type staining out of the concrete and then clean it with that pH neutral concrete cleaner. Where that might not be the same situation is if we're doing, say, an old mechanic shop with a lot of oil staining that is very difficult to get out of the ground. That will likely require mechanical abrasion to remove that from the concrete as good as possible.
I think that the biggest thing is people that are viewing my content. What I've been doing for the past 25 years is your standard residential garage floors. So I don't do industrial complexes. I don't do airport hangars. I've never epoxied a floor where forklifts are driving around and stuff like that. It's always just light automotive traffic. And so I'm confident with the system that we've created. I used to use muriatic acid. I did muriatic acid for years and years, and now I've gone away from muriatic acid to these primers from Rust-Oleum. Absolutely love them. It makes my process a little bit easier. I don't have to work with harsh chemicals, and so I think it's really, you have to decide what you're doing. Now, if you are doing industrial floors and stuff like that, you might want to look at a different system.
Yeah, it's really going to depend. Industrial floor that is going to get heavy forklift turning all the time, maybe drums of chemicals or supplies, will probably need to be prepped with surface preparation equipment. But there's probably break rooms, hallways, offices, projects like that might not necessarily need that because it is all foot traffic. And really one of the things about EP55's technology is it's formulated for one thing, to stick. Right. Where a lot of other products we utilize, a lot of products you previously utilized, are designed for a lot of different platforms, not necessarily primary goal adhesion.
Right. So the EP155, we're going to be applying that now here pretty soon. You're going to get to see that process, how simple and easy it is. Then we're going to begin, after that, doing an epoxy coating, throwing some flakes down. We're going to be doing 2 clear coats on top of that. One of them is going to be the top coat's a wear coat. Once automotive traffic starts driving in here, it does get pretty hot in the summertime up here. Sometimes, we're starting to touch 110 degrees up here, 109 degrees. Somebody driving their automobile around town, they're going to roll in here. It's going to be super dang hot. It's going to set in here for a day. They're going to back out. Is Rust-Oleum pretty confident it's not going to pull up the coating?
Very confident of that. To aid in that protection with this particular system, we are utilizing that high-wear urethane top coat of the Poly 1 HD, specifically designed to combat hot tire pickup.
Awesome. So Tony, one of the reasons why, I've adopted this system, I think, early on in my career, I started doing epoxy floors, and once again, I've been doing them for over 25 years. I've never once had a callback on an epoxy floor with the system I've been using, and I've never ground a floor. I think, the people that are watching my videos, more than likely are not, companies that specialize in floor coatings, doing industrial floor coatings. These are painters like me, maybe, a 1 or 2 man paint crews, or even a little bit larger companies. But, typically like me, when I'm, running my painting company, if I'm just 1 man, 2 man, even 10 man crew, I really can't afford to go out and buy a grinder. And it's sometimes a little bit difficult to rent a grinder. And so there are floor systems that, you don't have to have a lot of money to enter into epoxy floors. What I'm trying to show you is that, if you're just one man out there doing residential repaints, you can actually add this to a service and you don't have to, invest a lot of money into equipment. I have a trailer out here. I think it's a 6x8 trailer. I can't fit a grinder in there. I literally can't afford a grinder right now, where I'm at. But this system, I think Rust-Oleum has come up with a great system where you don't even have to use, muriatic acid, which harsh chemicals. So the neutral cleaners that we're using from Rust-Oleum are great. They're awesome cleaners. They're not harsh chemicals. I remember, one time in my career, I was acid etching a floor to do an epoxy floor. I dropped the pump sprayer. The lid actually popped off and the muriatic acid splashed in my face, in my eyes. And I know you don't want that to happen with you. So I think, I'm like really happy with this system. It's made it easy for me. I think it's a great system for anybody wanting to enter into, doing epoxy floors. And do you have any insight that you might want to touch on that also here?
Yeah, surface prep equipment is always king because you're going to take everything off the top, but it's expensive. And in most residential applications likely isn't needed. Now, when you're using a particular primer, you're not making probably as much money in your labor as you could be with the surface preparation equipment, but you have the investment that you're going to have to pay down with that surface preparation equipment. So what we've formulated that has 10 years of efficacy behind it is an adhesion promoting primer designed to stick. That's all it's designed to do for this particular application. So if you are doing other projects on the job, say in this situation on a new build, you can tie in this floor because oftentimes the painter gets asked, hey, do you do floors? Yep. The barrier is usually the surface prep equipment, and we are confident in this solution for this application.
Yeah, I mean, that's how this floor came about. We're painting the interior. The builder didn't even know that I do flooring, and he had somebody, another painter do his own personal floor. And I said, hey, I do floors. And he's like, oh man, that's awesome. So that's how I kind of stepped into doing this floor. So once again, you don't have to have, a lot of money into entering into this as a service. You can add epoxy floors as a service like, I started doing, quite a few years ago, and it can be actually pretty profitable.